And so what the ego does, in communication theory, which is very popular nowadays because of information theory becoming, I think, dominant, even in the field of physics, but certainly in the field of social psychology, etc. Communication theory starts with the assumption that people want to communicate. And they're looking for ways to maximize the clarity of communication. They want to minimize, let's say, minimize the noise and maximize the signal. But I would say that the ego could be defined from this perspective as a machine to maximize the noise to signal ratio. In other words, to obscure clear communication. Because there are things you cannot say and things you don't want to hear. There are taboos. There are things that are unbearable to receive in communication and to transmit. And so that increases the need for self-agitation. So we have this system of the ego that works against the soul's self-liberation from bondage, because it has to pass through the valley of the shadow of death without fearing its own evil. And that's not so easy to do. So the way I think we can finally describe the ego and its pain which every religion speaks of. That's the whole basis and reason for religions existing. Buddha came, if you read the Four Noble Truths, to eliminate suffering caused by the ego and its desires, etc., its ignorance, avidya. We have a knower here, avidya, so we don't have to worry about avidya, but avidya, a willful ignorance, is inherent to the ego mind. And so how I would define the ego for purposes of this retreat, at least, is that the ego is a wound. In fact, I'll call it the primal wound. And it's the wound that has ruptured our consciousness and split subject from object. So that now the mind works only in duality, and it projects itself as other. And it has lost most of itself. It has lost its wholeness. It has lost its true nature, its reality, through this rupture, this wound. And then the ego tries to bind the wound by maximizing the number of attachments that the subject has to objects in the world. And it tries to bind its pain and its suffering through possession of those objects. Now, some of those objects are physical. Some will be people. Some may be cute kittens, and some may be other kinds of entities. Some will just be comfort foods and websites that make you feel good watching, or take your mind off of your pain and create some erotic stimulation or something like that to divert your attention from the pain that your ego cannot bear to feel. And in some cases, it amounts to signifiers in the mind, certain kinds of thoughts that will produce enjoyment, certain kinds of attitudes, including what Nietzsche called the spirit of vengeance, right? The envy, the rivalry, and the desire then to dominate. So all the three lower chakras we can consider to be the source of the pain and the defenses against the pain. In the first chakra, total paranoia, fear of abandonment, confusion, a sense of total dependency and security needs. And then at the next chakra, just fury, anger at having been prematurely weaned, wanting to dominate and to try to achieve a sense of not caring. And then at the third chakra, just control, power, dominance. And these three chakras, of course, are always interwoven. That's what constitutes the ego complex. And that complex becomes ironclad with the need to sustain that mode of consciousness from dissipating and bringing a malignant depersonalization. And so the ego has to, or the soul really, has to recognize the lack of wholeness, the rupture that has caused what Ramana calls split mind, right? Satarivu. That split, it cannot be healed through relationality to the other. It can only be healed through the actual recognition that there is no separation of subject and object, that both are fictional. And the fiction of the subject came because of the need for the love that of those who give you a name and give you a set of rules to follow, and a set of, let's say, ego ideals of what represents success. And then one usually naively follows those rules and climbs the wrong mountain in life, and then has to turn back and try another and another, but the ego can no longer understand the way homeward. And so the weights that one carries get very heavy. Actually, these are getting very heavy. I thought somebody would ask me, why are you wearing ankle weights? And then I was going to put on an act and say, what? Ankle? I didn't know those were there. You put them on me while I was meditating, didn't you? I knew it's a trick. I don't know where they came from. I suppose I could remove them. But what if I'm supposed to wear them? What if I'm meant to wear these? And what if something bad happens if I remove them, What if it turns out that the only gravity I have is in these, and if I take them off, I'll float away, and I won't be able to come down again? It could happen. I can't take a chance. I'm not going to take these off. I'd be a fool, because it would be crossing the Rubicon. Then there'd be no way back if I started floating up. Who's going to catch me? I'd be all alone in space. No, I can't take these off. How many can relate to that situation? And it's got Velcro on it. And, to take them off, you've got to rip open the Velcro. And what is Velcro? It's thousands of micro Klingons, right? Little micro attachments to this and that. And, I can't. So, no, I'm in Tsugswang. I can't take them off, but they're getting too heavy to carry. What do I do? Now, I think that's the situation everyone is in right now. It's not just me. Is it just me? Am I the only one? I think everyone is carrying some of these weights, and you've been carrying them a long time, but they get heavier and heavier. And at some point, they're going to get too heavy to carry. Then what? You're going to have to remove them. That's the moment I think that we are getting close to. Most people are not there yet. I don't have to remove them yet. What do you mean? I'm doing okay. Everything is cool. So I'm a little slower, but Who was that character in the Baron von Munchausen? He had a real ball and chain. I forgot. Berthold, that's the one. Berthold, yes. Well, we're all Bertholds here, But we could also be the Baron. But you got to remove that, and then you can go very fast indeed toward liberation. So this is the situation as I see it at the moment. Could be wrong, but I think that's pretty much what I wanted to transmit this evening for this retreat, to see if we can get an agreement, at least, that we're all in this kind of a situation at one level or another. And the good news is that it's fictional. It really is a story. It's based on a story you're attached to. And it's the story that is determining your fate right now, not you. As long as you're in the ego structure, that complex will prevent you from recognizing your ability to simply remove the Velcro. and to have the will to do it. To have the will to do it. One must be done with that character. One must be complete and ready to return to the infinite self, which is what we really are anyway. We never really left it. It's just a dream. It's all perfect. But it has to be faced. And the loss of the unreal has to be gone through. As we know, the death drive, like everything else in duality, is bifurcated. We have an upper death drive, and we have a lower death drive. Most people who get to that moment of zugzwang and the weights are too heavy to carry choose the lower death drive. The suicide of the body, which is an epidemic today in the world. And the problem is it doesn't solve the problem. The sanskaras will go even into the realm of death and bring one back into another life with an even worse situation of the same tendencies, the same blindness, the same lack of will to take the upper death drive. But the upper death drive takes even more courage than the lower. Much more, in fact. Because there's no running away. And when there's really no running away, then the shift has to happen now. It's not something that can be put off into the future. And as one perhaps gradually lets go of a little bit of the Velcro at a time, which you can do, there will be more space, more presence, more awareness. In fact, we could think of the chakras in the Kundalini map as a kind of a xylophone, and most people are just playing the lower three notes over and over again, kind of like the Beatles were playing those little drum notes in that song. But if we can start hitting the fourth chakra, we will stimulate the vibration of divine love. And that alone changes everything. Suddenly we're in a different realm. And then if you have the will to hit chakra 5, suddenly the wisdom of the fundamental mind, the wisdom, not knowledge, but wisdom of how to use that unbearable knowledge and make it not only bearable, but salvific. And then if you can hit chakra 6 on your xylophone, you can transcend the ego entirely and realize that's never what you were. You were never born. You are the deathless. And then if you hit chakra 7, you never were. There is no longer any subject separate from the object, which is the ocean of consciousness itself. And the drop dissolves into the ocean without remainder. Now, to the ego, that can be considered to be very horrendous. It's like one will be devoured by God. And when God devours you, there is no leftovers. It's done. And so as long as there are attachments, one will not want to experience the drop disappearing into the ocean. But the consciousness then becoming oceanic, infinite, beautiful, Satchidananda, the ultimate grace, the ultimate freedom. And we can choose that ultimate freedom now. And it can only be chosen in the now, when we are awake, present, and in the full realization of the total spectrum of consciousness, in which one can choose the source, the ultimate, the absolute self, not the relative, not the short-lived, not the illusory, the fictional, the temporary, but the eternal light and life that is beyond the illusion of both life and death. And it's the making of that choice that brings the celebration of all of the gods and goddesses and allows the continuation of life beyond the eschaton, so that a new world, a divine world, can become the dream that is a gift of grace to all beings who are courageous enough to enter into that vibrational frequency. And everyone, because we are all manifestations of the same light, the same intelligence, the same power, the same will, the same wholeness, we all have the equal ability to make that choice. We have that freedom. But will we use it in time? I think everyone at some point will want to be able to answer that question affirmatively. But it would be a mistake to believe you can defer the making of that decision indefinitely. Because time doesn't stop here until it does. But I'll stop here and call it a night for our introductory seminar, and hope that it has given you something to chew on that is digestible. But if you digest it, it will digest you as well. And so I wish everyone every blessing for the wisdom, for the love of the infinite, and the will to transcend and to become whole. And then to transmit and share that vibration of freedom with all, because that's our real mission while we are alive in bodies in this dying world. to be able to share what life really is when one is free of the contracted state of ego delusion. And one is the real.